Ooh yeah, ooh yeah, ooh yeah. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. Here it is. We're moving towards Christmas. And as I see it, pretty much everyone is kind of losing their nut. Here's a good example.
Yes, it is. It's the worst act.
We were talking about terrorism. What is terrorism?
From WHYY in Philadelphia, I'm Tanya Mosley with Fresh Air. Today, why a second Trump administration may be more radical than the first. We talk with Charlie Savage, who writes about presidential power, national security, and legal policy for the New York Times. He's reported on Trump's plans to expand executive power and the well-funded infrastructure that would support him. We'll also explore Trump's plans to get rid of tens of thousands of federal employees and replace them with loyalists, and his plan to reintroduce and toughen immigration policies.
A number of the things Trump tried to do last time were gummed up in the courts or even blocked. But there's various reasons to believe that he would have more success next time.
Savage is the author of 2 books about the rise of presidential powers, one about the George W. Bush administration and the other about the Obama administration. First News.
I'm Stuart McIntyre. In Washington, I'm Jack Speer. 4 members of the Islamist militant group Hamas have been arrested in Germany and the Netherlands on suspicion of planning terror. It's meant to be the best in the world, but I couldn't tell you why. Okay, how about I come in anyway? If not for a drink, then for whatever else you might want. I think it's a good idea. Do I scare you? No. You don't have to do anything if I'm not your type. Despite Adams' initial caution,
Voss is the director of data arts. It wasn't directed just to a particular geographic region or certain kinds of.
the government was hoping to start the trial on March 4th. That'll be one day before Super Forever.
Bodily function. Kate Cox argued that her future fertility.
Now, we were talking about terrorism. And I said, so, what is terrorism? Is it just a guy who's got a lot of explosive in a truck and drives in a building and blows it up? Or is it, an American F-16 carrying American JDAMs and cluster munitions, wiping out a whole neighborhood? Which one's the terror? Oh, no, those terrorists were in the basement. We knew it, so we had to take out the whole neighborhood. So which is it the truck driving, or and the guy is going after a specific thing like a police station or an army checkpoint or something of that nature, or is it the F-16 coming in taking out a whole neighborhood, to go after one terrorist leader or sergeant or private, What is it? And killing maybe 300 people, mostly children and mommies, So which is the terror, right? And the sound of the drones which is it?
Yes, it is. It's the worst act. The question is, states get to do stuff. When states do stuff, it's a little different than when groups do stuff.
Really? It's still.
Well, I don't mean that it makes it less bad. It just.
So that's lying. Our politicians lie to us, and we go along with it, and we feel okay.
Yeah. Well, everybody tells a story from their point of view and makes them out to be okay.
So we're
like that's an excuse. But see, politicians aren't just, coming from their point of view. Me, I do a stream of consciousness show here, and but I have no real agenda except my stream of consciousness. And whereas guys who are politicians, we had a nice little discourse about that girl who got up um, and made a speech about the strip, and she's the only strip girl in all of Congress, and then they you know put chains on her. Well, she did that on purpose. She's going to be reelected in her position for the next 20 years, and then she's going to get power because Congress and the Senate and every political entity in the United States, from president down to dog catcher, is all about power, control. And then money is the liquid, the grease of that, right? That and blackmail, right? And so that girl who went in there, and she got in there because she is what is known as the loyal opposition. And so she's going to be making deals and cutting things and getting envelopes and getting pictures taken of her doing strange things. And that's the way it works. And I said that to this guy, and he lost his nut. He said, "Oh, that's not." And I'm a scholastic. I know. I've talked to, Senator Kane. I know. Okay.
So everybody thinks their position is okay. We're basically all wrong. So why, Freud said, well, you do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome, you're fucking nuts. How come we can't realize that the real thing we need to do is to stop doing this?
What's his response?
Because it pays off for us to do it. Oh, but only in the short time. I mean, virtually every one of these things that we've done has come and bit us in the ass. And it's not just one bite, because it's like nuclear war, right? A good example is nuclear war. Well, we haven't had a nuclear war yet, right? But, we have this thing called...
So that was a bit too, I go on about nuclear war.
We have this thing called the trident.
Yeah, so I try to explain, and he goes that, you're switching the point of view, right? Now, I should have said, white Europeans have been exploitive fascists since the day of Christopher Columbus. Now, everyone jumps up in anyone's face. You're trying to retell history. No, if you go look at Orwell, and the, all the facts get sucked down the brain tube. And, the first thing we did was kill indigenous people. Chris lands on this little island, which is actually Haiti. That's what we call it now. And we call it Haiti. Why? Because it has always been hell. It was heaven when Chris got there. There were about 6 million indigenous people living on that island, which is, there's Haiti and Santo Domingo or whatever, where the rich people live. And Chris looked at these guys and said, and basically those guys went out in their canoes and took all the white boys back in and made them healthy, right? And Chris got the job because he wrote a great journal. So he wrote in his journal, "Oh, he's still sick. These people are great. They're tall, they're handsome, they're really smart, they're very generous. They don't hate anybody. They will be the easiest crew to dominate. They have no weapons, no army, no nothing, except a very beautiful civilization that's rich and pleasant, and we're going to make a lot of money." Went back. He took 20 of these people back to the Queen of Spain and showed them, and see, these kind of make great slaves. And then they kind of died of the swill that was Europe. And a year and a half later, he came back with a psychopath son and 2,500 hardened shock troops, all with guns and highest end of technology of killing, basically mortars and cannon, and everyone having guns, and they just took it over and basically killed 6 million of those indigenous people, mostly by disease, within 4 years. And then they had cut down all the trees, and they were growing, cash crops. And so, we killed all our slaves. So where are we going to go? and Africa was just across the pond. So they went over there, grabbed a bunch of Africans, and brought them back. Now that neck of the woods they landed in, these people knew about rice, and so they basically said, "Oh, we can grow rice here. What's rice? Here, let's show you what it is." Anyway, that's just before the Civil War. South Carolina, richest state in the Union, not because of cotton, not because of alcohol or tobacco, but because of rice. Now, all of these things are interconnected. And this boy here, he can't follow anything. Well, you're always switching the point. You're always, okay, let's see what he has to say. Now, this guy is a scholastic. Keep that in mind.
And we have the submarine nukes, the bombers flying over. The personality that is in that category. Oh, the guy who does, it's really almost the truth. I've never said they were the truth. And if you just Google, like, friend task to do something of that nature. It was. Right? I was paying attention. I reviewed every one of them. When you were listening to the major news outlets, correct? Listening, I was recording the video. Okay, so CBS, NBC, ABC, Public TV, CNN.
This is how much money this guy has.
Right? Correct. So those are all corporate news outlets, correct? Yes. So does that mean they are telling the truth? That's irrelevant to the point.
Irrelevant to the point?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not claiming they're the truth. I've never said they were the truth. I've never characterized them. You base your analysis on something that's not the truth and expect it to be truthful. I wasn't doing that. What were you doing? I wasn't expecting it to be truthful. I was simply saying I've observed how it's been covered. And so how was it covered through your observation? Oh, fuck you, man. There's something about this that I find highly, highly irritating. Disrespectful. It's like you're an argumentative motherfucker and you're going to find some argument somewhere in there and then you're going to change the subject. You don't want to stay on track. You don't want to make a point. You don't want to establish your point.
I love this guy.
You want to say, well, who said that?
He's a scholastic. He wants people to bow down to him.
A statement and basically say, I've been observant and I know what's going on. I didn't say I know what's going on. I said I've been observing. I'm not saying I'm right, but I have observed for a long time. That's all I said. And I have asked you, what did you observe overall? You mean from 5 years of coverage? Yeah, what did you observe? What was the general, did you pick up any kind of trend or a thing that you say, I wonder, what is it, Israel was the good guys, Palestine. One thing I learned was that when you have dramatic video, it overcomes the corporate influence. That if you've got a video of Sabra and Shatila, it gets aired. Even though it's not the kind of thing that if the video didn't exist, it would have not have been aired.
If the video exists,
I learned how they covered every day. How is a narrative?
the only reason that it was a Holocaust. And the only reason it got shown was that they wanted the world to see, listen, if you don't do what we say, this is what's going to happen to you. And this is what's, the war in Yugoslavia and what the war in the Strip is about. And all of the wars that are in Africa and everywhere else. There's 76 conflicts that are corporate caused. Every one of these countries, Sudan, et al., everything across Africa, all the countries that have no resources whatsoever, aren't logistic points, they have peace. Everyone's getting along fine. Every place, this place in Sudan where the two militaries, that we're one military, now we're fighting each other, and they're not killing each other. They're killing the people who basically, for 3 years just said, "Fuck, we're tired of this, you know, industrial imperial thing. We get to vote, and all we get to vote for is a corrupt leader, and we don't want it anymore. We want a real democracy. We want it represented representing us." And so, they basically didn't have a revolution because they knew that that would have been taken. They would all die. So they just said, "We're not going to work. We're not going to do. We're already starving." So after about a year and a half of that, the guy resigned, and they were slowly moving towards a representative democracy. And that's when these two generals got together and said, "I'll shoot you, you shoot me, but instead of us shooting each other, we're going to shoot all the public." And that's what's going on there. And they've already killed close to 1 million people, right? And you don't hear anything about it. They've already blown up everything, but it's not as stark as, the strip was, a almost 50-year thing of a, open air prison, and everyone built stuff on top of each other, and then Israel is just taking it down. It's like moving out there. They're mowing the lawn. They're getting rid of the cockroaches as they see them, and if it takes a nuclear weapon, they're going to push them to the smallest thing and have them all on top of each other. And if the disease don't kill them, from today until the 10th of January, if the demographic dynamics of the disease vectors occur, I would say close to 250,000 people will be dead. Not from bombs. I mean, there are going to be more people dead of bombs because they're going to keep blowing the place up, right? Until and people are going to say uncle, and basically Hamas, will say uncle, and they will, the leadership, the 100 or so guys and a few girls will kind of say, okay, we're gonna give up, and they're going to give themselves up to the UN, so they can't just be murdered by Israel, and Israel will get really upset and continue to hold the UN from coming in there, and more people will die of disease, and if they don't die fast enough, they will do something to the point of, I think, the guys up there in Lebanon, the representatives of Iran. I always forget their names. They're not Hamas, they're the other guys. Well, they have really sophisticated that could do real damage to Israel. And Israel is going to force their hand, and they're going to unload on Israel and take out, let's say, and their big port city, right? And kill maybe 100,000 people. And this is after probably 1 million will be dead in the strip, right? And that's it. It'll be off, and that's when Israel will launch a nuke into Lebanon and take everybody out there, and everyone in the strip will be in this little corner thing of about something the size of Philadelphia, and they'll drop a neutron bomb on those guys, and then they'll come in and start putting up for sale signs, and then we'll see what the rest of the world does. But what that will do is unleash all of the other people who've been wanting to do this. So good old Putin will nuke, Ukraine's capital and Odessa, right? And immediately, boom, and they're going to use big, nasty, no neutron bombs, but the thing that will do the most damage and throw up the most radioactive material. And even though it'll probably, kill a good deal of that part of Russia that's right along Ukraine, they will blame the Ukrainians and then go past their little defensive line, and they'll have everything all set, and they will take Ukraine and go up to the border of Poland and the other Baltic states and say, listen, we're going to just come in and take you, or you can join our new improved Soviet Union. We'll give you guys free oil and gas and coal, whatever you want, free, right? And we will build a new economic whoopee that will be, parity of EU. And you can still stay in the EU because we want to trade. They won't let us trade with them, but they'll trade with you, and you can play both sides of now. Just like Mr. what's his name? From starts with an H. The guy who's trying to block Ukraine from joining the EU, Viktor Orban, right? That guy. So he's going to be the poster boy of all the other countries, and there are a lot of countries in the Baltic states that are turning NICP. This is the new geopolitical stance. The neo-insane clown party, the NICP. Israel is already the NICP. The carrot heads party, the mega kids, they are NICP, right? Canada, NICP, Viktor Orban, NICP. Whoops. And elements of of Ukraine, NICP. The stand-up committee, he's straight up NICP. He'll do anything anybody tells him as long as he can make, he is making some serious book. So that's my little drift. And, our Scholastic here, because he's right.
Of Israel, the Palestinians are terrorists, and how they get characterized. I don't understand. I mean, what? The basic, thread of our conversation right now has been that media has changed. The narrative has changed from that the folks in the Gaza Strip are no longer terrorists, but they are being genocided. I didn't say that. Okay, so what are you saying? What is the narrative that's changed? They're telling the story of the suffering of the Palestinians. Okay. So didn't they tell that before this? Well, yeah, to some extent they did. That's always been a safe part of the story to tell. But they work other stuff. I don't know. Let me just say, man, if you haven't observed the evolution of the media on this, I think we're wasting our time talking about it. I said, see, you don't really ever really listen to me. You just get upset at me. I said that I noticed the change in the media, but I said it was a change of the narrative in that it wasn't caused by anything the guys on the ground were giving, because they are told what to say. Israel is controlling the narrative as best as it can. It hasn't let any European or foreign correspondents to go in to Gaza when they're blowing things. They have a few embedded guys from the BBC or here or there, but that's it. They're not letting anybody in there to show. The stuff that's getting out is stuff that people have on their phones and give to their cousins in New Jersey, right? And those guys kind of get it out, and that's why it's been seen, right? But if the corporate entities didn't want it seen, then it wouldn't be seen. Meaning the narrative is being changed for a reason. And every time I make a point, it's not like I'm changing a direction, but we were stuck in the narrative of Islamic terrorism for 20 years, and it changed in weeks. Bang, zing, we're no longer in Afghanistan. It's like a light switch, right? And then less than 6 months later, we have a tremendous ground war in Europe, right? Just whoop. It was like whiplash, right? And we watched that for 2 years, and nothing really changed. And then, it's a football game for the first year and a half. And then now 2 years later, when we're ready to change the channel again and leave the poor, Ukrainians out to hang, zing right to Israel. And your grand theory of the God above directing everything. Pretty much. My experience, I worked in the media in many different places. Not just a few radio stations, but I worked at Metro Media, which ended up becoming Fox News. I worked for Fox News for the first, I built their Inside Edition set and was their TD. So I kind of was there watching these guys put together stories, and I was part part of newspapers, and I watched how that nothing gets out that the ownership doesn't want out. Period. There are no mistakes. There's nothing live. There is nothing, exotic. There's nothing fresh. It's not just happening.
Well, see, that's as I explained to you on the Sabra and Shatila thing. That's not true. It's not always. It's generally true. Not always true. There are things that influence it. There are definitely things that restrain it. But new things come along practically every single day.
Yes.
I'll hear a news story that I say I wouldn't have heard that 6 months ago. Practically every day.
Anything else about it again?
Say that?
Then you don't hear anything else about it again.
That's not true. No, the exact opposite of that is true. You see the influence it has on other journalists, so you see it more frequently.
So give me an example of something new that occurred that set a news trend.
Well, it's just examining Israel's behavior, describing the right-wing nature of the government, the fact that Netanyahu was paying millions to Hamas, turning his back on Qatar, sending money to Hamas, providing weapons to Hamas. You didn't hear that.
I knew about that. We talked about it before this happened.
Well, look, man, if you can't understand that that's being covered now and would not have been covered 6 months ago, I don't know where we're going to go.
Here's a good example. So the New York Times puts out a story about how, Mossad, the IDF, Bibi, new government, all knew this was coming, right? A year ago. I mean, they had the game plan, and out there where the big fence is, like every quarter mile, they had people up on the fence with big binoculars, and they were calling back to the home office, "Hey, we're seeing a lot of stuff out here," and they were told to shut up. Right?
The girls.
Yes. So that was in the New York Times article, and it was also in other articles that I read before this even happened. That stuff was going on, and what is it, right? And so, how come that story isn't getting a big play?
Well, it is actually getting a surprisingly big play.
Well,
you would expect it to get no play at all, but it's gotten some play.
Is it getting any? Are they looking deeper into it? Or is that story that came out 2 weeks in the New York Times? Has there been anything that you will look at the media way more than I do? You have access to all of that stuff way more than I do. On my very
So why isn't Biden saying anything about this, right? There is no stickiness to this. This is all scripted. I keep giving this scholastic, and this guy represents the scholastic mentality, right? When you bring up an unrefutable thesis, he screams at you that you're blowing smoke up his nose, right? And so it's quite interesting to watch this all going on. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. And here it is. Oh, what time is it? Here on the East Coast, it's 1:45. Oh, let's see what Amy is saying as she's wrapping it up.
They took me and they put some even like army clothes in me, and they start to take pictures of me taking poses soldier by soldier to show their girlfriends they are heroes. But while I was under arrest, under the guns, and they were taking these pictures for me. And then they put me in a truck. They took me to Al Jalama checkpoint, and they throw me in the mud. It was raining. They throw me beside the street where all the jeeps, the vehicles, army go around me, and I don't understand what is going on. Are they gonna drive on me? Are they gonna kill me? I don't know what is going on because I was blindfolded. And then they put me in another truck and they took me to another place where they throw us again outside, start to do like an immediate interrogation about my identity.
And this guy, I think, is a Israeli citizen He's just
they
Arab.
Let me even take my shoes or clothes to cover myself. It's December. It's very cold with the rain, and it was a torture somehow, psychologically torture, mentally torture. That all the time the soldiers go around you, their guns touching you, and you just waiting the moment when they're gonna shoot you. Are they gonna drive on you? Are they gonna smash you? And
Kids, this is going to happen in America very soon.
Place to place makes you walk that you don't know without shoes with the mud. So it was
It doesn't matter whether Biden or Carrot Head get elected. They do the same thing. Biden put something close to a few $1 billion down on the border, right? Are they building the big fence? No, they're building camps right on the border. And you go listen to, go online, go to Carrot Head's, website, and he says very straight up what he's going to do. Martial law. He's going to get all of the illegal aliens, right? And he's going, we're not letting anybody in this country except white Christian people, and they got to be the right kind of Christian people.
This is I cannot go on again.
Go look it up. Don't believe a word I say. I'm just a storyteller, right?
Wait for another promise. We have to do something even as a Palestinians. But even though we still in the Freedom Theater is a cultural, artistic place where we have children, young people, girls, boys, women to come here to practice, to find a place where they can express themselves, where they can imagine there is a better life, a better place in this world, where they can decide their future in different ways, to choose to be different from the reality that we're living in. Still the Israelis come and they're telling us, no, you cannot dream, you cannot think that you can be something.
I think this guy's talking about the West Bank.
You are under occupation, and that's your destiny as a Palestinian, to grow up, to be born, to grow up and die under brutal, crazy, violent occupation that they don't believe in anything, not in art. They arrest us as artists, as the people who do theater. They destroy everything that shows there is culture, there is art, that we Palestinians, we are a normal people. The Israeli soldiers believe we are not a human being. That's why they're killing us in very easy way. That's why they destroy theaters and cultural places, because also they believe no one in this world can ask them to stop. No one can tell them you can't do this. They believe, as an Israelis, do whatever they want, and no one in this world can tell them what you are doing. So I'm asking.
Now this ain't all Israelis. This is just the NICP, the Neo Insane Clown Party.
The main founders of the Freedom Theater was believing the third intifada, which we're doing now, it's gonna be a cultural, artistic intifada.
And they're more scared of that than anything, because culture is what changes stuff, not a gun, but the pen. And not, when they said the pen's more powerful than the gun, they weren't talking about newspapers, they were talking about poetry.
Colonization or under occupation. This planet is very important, that we're gonna live together in this planet without all this hate, without all this violence, that the only country creating this and make all this world unstable, it's Israel.
I wanted to play the words of Giuliano Mer-Khamis, again, the co-founder of the Jenin Freedom Theater. He was killed in 2011 in Jenin, shot by masked assailants. We talked to him when he was in the United States. He talked about the theater's mission that you're sitting in right now, the theater that is once again ransacked. This is Giuliano.
My name is Giuliano, and I'm the director of the Freedom Theater in Jenin refugee camp.
That was expressed. Just tell me firstly about your experiences then. You were a soldier back in 2014, and it was a very different kind of war conflict.
It's an Israeli soldier.
No question about that. Yeah. But just tell me, what's your kind of abiding memory from that experience? What was the key lessons you learned from that experience?
Yeah, so I served between 2012 and 2015 in
It's
a
an Israeli
reconnaissance unit
soldier,
called Sayeret Nachal.
totally indoctrinated in
And
the NICP. An
I
IDF
was,
officer.
before entering, we had another operation that was quite large, but nobody remembers because what we called Protective Edge, Sukeitan, or the 2014 war, kind of overshadowed the other operation that came before, which was called My Brother's Keeper, in which we searched in the West Bank for the bodies, what became known to be the bodies. And during those weeks of being in the West Bank, just to give you like kind of the mindset that I entered Gaza with, we were told we're searching for these teenagers, but we were also taking advantage of this moment where there's like public legitimacy to display power and more force in the West Bank. So we were basically searching for them, but also demonstrating our presence, our power, and also searching for any clue for anything suspicious, which is basically anything that you decide is suspicious. And so for weeks during this operation, I don't remember exactly how many days, I was a commander and I was choosing homes to enter and to invade and to search, which basically means to enter a house in the middle of the night of a family, flip all the furniture, terrify the family, usually not find anything usually because you're just choosing homes randomly and move on. When the idea is kind of we will display our force and then they will regret ever like basically fucking with us. And doing these missions as a commander already started to really bother me, and I started to question the whole mission that we were doing. But then Hamas started shooting rockets from Gaza, and we are told that we're preparing for an invasion into Gaza. And I come with all these questions and a feeling that I'm not very motivated or not really believing in this kind of system that I'm serving. So entering Gaza was already something that was kind of complicated for me because I wasn't sure I believe in it, you know, and what we're doing. But I was so committed to my teammates or my unit mates,
That's how
the guys
military
that
is
were serving
organized.
with me, which are still
You
good
can do
friends
the
until today,
most
even though
horrific
I'm
thing because you're there for your
anti-occupation
teammates.
activist. I felt like I don't really have the option to not go in. So entering already was kind of a complicated moment for me. And every time there is a war in Gaza, we can speak more about what I saw and what I did and what I think about it. But every time there is an escalation, it's not like there was 2014 and now the 7th of October 23. Every year in Israel, we have what we call a round of violence, which is a normalized way of calling basically
They call it
aggression,
mowing the lawn.
escalation, war, violence. Every time this happens, which is quite often, it brings me back to that moment where we crossed the fence into this place that we've never been into, and we only heard scary things about where everybody inside are terrorists that want to
the
kill you.
Gaza Strip.
So physically, just to answer your question simply, when I see these images, it really has an effect on me every time there's an escalation.
I mean, it's just that point about civilians, I suppose, because you said, you know, you were kind of what's driven into your heads is that these are terrorists or extremists, and we've heard, I suppose, from senior Israeli politicians talking about things like human animals, that there were no innocents in Gaza, as the former foreign minister Avigdor Lieberman put it, for example. The Israeli president, I suppose, talking about collective guilt, that kind of stuff. I mean, you wrote in the Guardian article, really good, brilliant Guardian article you wrote, since the Israeli military had ordered civilians to leave the neighborhood, anyone who remained was, so we were told, a Hamas operative or supporter and therefore a legitimate target. I'm just interested in that because obviously in terms of the rules of war, that isn't how the rules of war work in terms of international law, Geneva Conventions. But so I'm interested kind of how that was expressed and how that actually played out on the ground.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't really know exactly what the laws of war, international laws of war are. So it's hard for me to tell, especially even now as an activist, but especially as a soldier, you have no idea about those things. Nor do your commanders probably. But there's a logic behind the way we fight in Gaza, the way I experienced it, and I don't think it changed ever since, is that you tell the residents of a certain neighborhood that you want to fight in, or do you want to conquer, that you're coming in, and they have to leave. They have an X amount of time to leave. So once you warn them, in your eyes, whoever stayed is either actively participating in the war as a Hamas member or collaborating because we told them to leave. So once you warn the population, this area becomes a battleground. It's not a neighborhood anymore, at least in your eyes as a soldier. You did your part, or you did what you needed to do to tell them to get away. So if they stay, it's their fault. And you don't really stop to think about that too much. And most people don't also after they leave the army. And for many in Israel, that's even considered something that's too humane. Like, why are we doing this? When actually it's just a way of legitimizing the area to be a battleground. It's not actually, I don't think it's actually to help people save their lives. Now, going into fighting in Gaza compared to what I've experienced in the West Bank is a completely different story.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart.
Hey, Patrick.
Did you know that right now over 70 million people have had to leave their homes due to war and disaster? That's roughly the size of the United Kingdom. I can't imagine what it would be like to have to suddenly leave my home, where to take my family.
70 million.
Because we do this kind of, we treat neighborhoods as battlegrounds, and we treat it as total war, and we don't want to deal with civilian populations. We don't make a difference. Whoever stayed is a legitimate target. Then we enter with much another level of engagement, of firepower that I've ever seen. It's completely a different scale. And there's this idea of we take zero risks on our own soldiers. So the way you enter is with very, very heavy artillery and bombings from above, from the sky, and this makes you feel much more confident as a soldier who's entering. And it leaves a level of destruction that I've never experienced before in anything I did in the West Bank. Another example for that could be the way we enter homes in Gaza. Before that, in the West Bank, you maybe invade a home. You're not really asking if you can enter or not. You maybe break the door, you maybe kick the door, or do whatever you need to get in. But in Gaza, you don't even go through the door because it might be trapped. So you fire a rocket from a shoulder rocket into the wall, and you enter through the wall. So the way we're engaging with this whole area is completely different. We were there for 2 weeks, I'd say maybe 3. And as you're there, you start to see it becomes more difficult to treat the place as if it's just a battleground, because you're actually staying in people's homes. At least that's the way it was for me. You start seeing family photos, signs of life of people who live in this place, school books. We heard of a family that one of our units met in one of the homes, and they later died in the bombings from above, from fighter jets. So this kind of idea that everybody is just who stayed is engaged in fighting, and that we're in a battleground. It's hard to keep it when you actually see that you're in a neighborhood. And to your point, that has to do with the dehumanization. I think once you start to question that, or to feel like that idea crack, then you have 2 options. Either you start questioning the whole thing that you're doing, or you have to turn to dehumanization. Because then if you don't do that, you're left with a lot of guilt, I believe.
I mean, linked to that, do you think that IDF soldiers currently in Gaza have vengeance, I suppose, in their heads? And that vengeance has been maybe legitimized by, I suppose, those higher up in the army, but also politicians. And when I say vengeance, it doesn't simply mean in their heads, say, identifying Hamas members, for example, but the risk is any civilian in Gaza could be on the receiving end of that vengeance. What's your sense of kind of how many IDF soldiers maybe are currently thinking right now, and how sanctioned that might be?
I think naturally, after seeing what happened on the 7th of October, people, not only soldiers, everybody in Israel might have this feeling that they want revenge. Maybe it wore down by now, but even I maybe felt it to a certain extent, you know. But what's sad and what's different these days is that this kind of feeling and this desire for revenge and this idea that we don't need to make a difference between Hamas operatives and civilians isn't just something that you feel inside and you kind of want to feel,
This guy talking
feel ashamed
is
of
a
it. It's completely normalized
IDF,
by the highest
Israeli
ranks,
Defense Force.
not
He was
only
an officer
in government,
in
which is already
2014.
really fucked up, but they're, I guess, trying to be populist and to ride this wave of hate. But also, you can see this from within higher ranks in the army, which is really frightening. And I can definitely see how certain statements that used to be more considered kind of things that you're not supposed to say, like we need to flatten out Gaza, there shouldn't be anybody left there after we finish this war, or it's about time we finish them once and for all kinds of statements like that have become something that are quite normal around me, sadly, and they become
what
normalized
happened
because
in-
of our leaders, first of all.
You know,
We
pre-Nazi
saw those
Germany,
images,
right?
as we've all seen
Kristallnacht,
images,
right?
video footage
And then
of
Adolf burns down the Reichstag.
Alison, you
And
mentioned
they have the
severely
Nuremberg
naked
laws,
down
which
to
were
their
copied
underpants,
from American Jim Crow.
paraded in front of
And the
cameras,
Nazis said that
I mean,
the
a former British
American
soldier
Jim
made the
Crow
point
was
that,
too much.
removing
So they
clothes
kind of leaned
people
back.
isn't in itself something which you wouldn't see in a military operation, check for suicide belts, things like that.
This is going to happen in
They're
America,
doing
kids.
mass arrests where people are stripped
Real
and then
soon.
paraded in front of
It doesn't matter
cameras,
whether
obviously contravenes
you
the
know,
Geneva
Carrot Head or
Conventions,
JoJo win.
that you can't do that according
They're
to
both
international
the
law.
same
But what's your
guy.
sense of when you saw those images
The
and
last
footage,
president who
but also
ever
allegations that
tried
were obviously taken away
to
and
not
allegations of
be
torture, that kind of thing.
a
What's your
poster
sense of what's
child was
happening there?
Jack Kennedy,
How it's
because he was so
justified and what the
sick.
purpose
He
is?
knew he was going. So
Yeah, my sense
you should
is,
go
first
listen
of
to
all,
the
there's no
last
doubt
5
that many
speeches that
people
Jack
in
Kennedy,
Gaza
you know, about
are
secret societies
part of Hamas,
and
and they might
how
even
he's going to
participate
take
in what
out,
happened on
you
the
know,
7th of October.
everything of
It's
the
not like I know who
Security
is a
Act
terrorist,
of
who isn't. I can't come here
1947.
and tell you,
Right?
oh, I know all of these people are innocent, and none of them have done anything on the 7th. But I don't see any security, military logic behind parading people nakedly in front of cameras, like naked people in front of cameras, in such a humiliating way. One thing that it makes me think is that this can only help Hamas more gain power,
And they
because
want that. They want
have
that
maybe an
is a
ideology
loyal
in which they
opposition,
say
an enemy
all
that can
Zionists, all Israelis, all
force
Jews
the public to
are
be
kind of
scared.
monsters that it's impossible to speak with in any kind of dialogue, and we must fight, and because we have no other option, so we have no one to speak with. And images like that really serve, I think, that narrative on Hamas's side. But what I think they do, and their purpose is actually, it might be twofold. It might be, one idea would be, and I think this is kind of something you hear a lot, and it is kind of like this, and it's a bit Orientalist logic about the Middle East, is that we need to talk to the language. You know, we need to stop being so humane, as if we're like the most humane nation in all of history, and we need to start understanding that we're in the jungle and we need to play according to the jungle rules. So maybe something like that, according to that logic, is kind of showing them, oh, you messed with us, you really messed up this time, which has been proven for years, from
And
whenever
what good
I
has
was
it
alive,
done?
at least.
More
that this
people die.
never
More
caused
innocents die.
any more safety or security, only caused the opposite. It caused more escalation and more violence and more feeling that there's no safety. So I don't see how that logic works so far if we're speaking security.
And the neo-insane clown party, that people who they are scared of isn't Hamas. They're not a threat. You know, IDF has jet fighters and cluster bombs and all the rest, and you know, unsinkable ships and tanks that can't be taken out. You know, their main battle tanks are, forget about, they're unstoppable. And we just sent them $175 million worth of these rounds, these 88 millimeter rounds for those tanks. And each one of those rounds costs about $3,000, right? And when it is fired out of that tank, the muzzle velocity is like when that hits the target a mile or 2 or 3 away, it hits that target like a, 60-ton wrecking ball moving at 1,100 miles a minute, and so that's a lot of kinetic energy, and that's why Gaza is the way. That's that, and the bunker busters and the cluster bombs that Israel is using. That's their main armaments that they're dropping from the sky, right? No smart bombs, none of the above. And this is, guys, you have to remember, this is going on the American nickel. When Georgie Bush, we try to tell them to be more humane. No way. No, they go inside and they drink the blood of children and toast Moloch and kill more. So, and don't believe a word I say. Come on, I'm a stand-up comedian here, and this ain't too funny. And we own this. The United States owns this, just as we own the catastrophe in the Ukraine, because the Ukraine ain't over. Once Israel nukes a few things, good old Putin will nuke, the Ukrainian capital and Odessa, and then take their whole army and just wash across Ukraine, killing everything with the same motif that the IDF is using in the Strip. Period. There's no way that Ukraine can fight that, because they've already kind of suffered 2.5 years, already tired, already all of that. We're going to win. We're going to show those Russians, They're ready. They've already lost husbands and brothers and sisters and their mother-in-law and their house and everything, right? And the only reason they keep fighting is because we keep sending them pizzas and keeping the bars open and giving the illusion, oh, look, we're still kind of here. No, between now and the 24th of February, we're going to see Israel just obliterate. I mean, they already obliterated Gaza, but they're going to kill everyone, nuke everyone in the western spots and Lebanon, right? And that's going to, we have these aircraft carriers off in the Mediterranean, and they're really not a strategic anything. Those aircraft carriers are great going against a country like, Lebanon, where we can obliterate it in 4 days, right? They have enough bombs, enough aircraft, and there's no one shooting at them. It's pretty easy to blow. Look what Israel's doing. No one's shooting those airplanes down. So the American aircraft carriers are just a target. And once Israel lets loose of nukes, and then, Putin lets loose some nukes, you got to realize, guys, this isn't those guys doing it. This is a scripted thing pushing humanity into this thing that lots of people love to call the New World Order, but it's not. It's the same old world order, just a lot more violent, right in your face, right? I mean, this is no different than the Roman Empire, the Babylonian. I read the Bible, meaning I got a lot of time on my hands. I read the Bible every day, right? And to me, it's a tuning fork, It boom, as I read it, when I hear that, woo, I go, oh, look, God's talking to me. And I don't take it as liturgy. Meaning liturgy, what is it? Where's the root of that? The Greek litos, which what does that mean? To litigate, to be a lawyer. The Pharisees were lawyers of the scriptures. They were let's make a deal. And God kept saying, no. There is no deals here. It's me is the only way. And if you guys still screw it up, I'm sending my boy. So if you're not a slave to God's unconditional love, meaning you being unconditionally loving, and the only way you can get to that is through Jesus Christ's unconditional forgiveness. I mean, this guy went up on the cross, and he said, oh, why have you forsaken me? Not so much a God. He was God. It's like I'm forsaking myself. Boy, you'd have to be a real Fruit Loop for that one. No. Why are you forsaking me? I've just spent 33 years showing you some pretty amazing stuff. Your scriptures talk about it for the last 6,000 years, and yet you're not ready to give up to love's co-creation because you're addicted to frigging convenience. And that's why, God sent Moses into Egypt, because, the slavery that the Hebrew nation was in was not they were cleaning toilets. They were addicted to materialism. And that's what's going on. The NICP is addicted to materialism. They're in control. They're just like, our buddy, that good old Scholastic. Let's play a little of him. I think you got the picture from the retired IDF officer. Right?
Limited, looking so long. I don't even know if he's a human.
I don't know. I don't think they're going to do it overtly because I don't think China would allow or be pleased with it. I don't think most of the world would be pleased with intervening at this point.
My sources say that what it is that elements of the BRICS, but mainly China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia and Iran are wanting to build an infrastructure so if something really pops up, they're ready to fight together.
I don't doubt that.
And so that's kind of the information I'm getting. But they are sending, not like, brigades of soldiers, but personnel is infiltrating into all of these places.
Well, there might be mercenaries, but they're not government soldiers.
Well, that's what whatchamacallit, that mercenary army that was their army fighting in Ukraine, named after the
guy who got killed.
Yeah, that guy. So they got, and that's not their only.
But that was where brigades and organizing the infantries and.
But they also had. It's
more like the American guys or British guys or Canadian guys that show up to fight in Ukraine.
Right. Mercenaries. Right. So they have their own, but they have different levels of them. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, they're not. My point is, I would be really surprised, very surprised, that Russia was doing more than allowing a mercenary to go.
Right. So, but that was my sources are saying that these guys are
very surprised that.
I mean, they had it for that day.
I've been preaching the whole time. It's about the information flow. It's about having an informed public is the key to the whole thing.
Okay. So let's just take that little block right there. Having an informed public is the key to the issue, right?
This is good.
That one little block, right?
Now this guy's a Scholastic. He knows what he's talking about.
What you might call the foundation cornerstone of the thing.
He's been observing everything
well-informed public, right?
Well, I'll put it this way. If you're going to choose something to do to make a difference, it's the most logical place to do it.
Okay, is informed public, yes. And, our Constitution says that, the French, any philosopher basically says what you just said, right? Voltaire, Plato, all those guys. Anyway, so, we're looking at that, right? A well-informed public. Okay, so how do we, what's, so that's interesting. So what are the component parts of a well-informed public? Just NPR, radio, and TV? Or is it who they are? Where did they come from? What was grandma's story they told them? Where did they go to school? Are they, what's their socioeconomic?
Wait a minute, give me this one. The key to the thing is informed public. Now, what do you have to say?
And then I say the component parts of having a informed public.
Component parts of having an informed public. What are you talking about?
So what does it take to make an informed public?
Oh, now you're coming back to the how.
Yeah.
I was talking about the what.
Well, the what is, so the thing that we can agree on is to make the change you want to make. One of the most important, if not the most important, is an informed public, right?
Right.
That's the first thing.
Now, if you want to shift over to how to get that and confuse that with the point.
Well, I thought we agreed to the point. The point is we need a informed public. Now you have to say, how are you going to get that? Right?
Okay.
Right? And so to get that, what do we got to do? What do we look at to get that informed public? Well, we have to know what that public is first, right? Don't we have to?
Wait a minute. What now?
One of the first things we have to do to get that informed public is we have to get to know who is the public.
Why do you say that?
Well, to inform them, you have to know who they are, what will inform them.
No, you need a journalist that is doing their best to do that.
Okay, so if that journalist doesn't know who his audience is, how is he going to communicate the narrative?
Well,
So, guys, this
why
is
do you
chat.
think
What do
he
you
needs
think
to
of
know who his
this?
audience
This
is
is a good thing
to do
for
the
you to
job,
respond
to do
to.
professional journalism? Why do you think he needs to know his audience?
Well, okay, so let's say he finds a story that's important to tell to the public, right? Now, if he only speaks English and comes from a English white point of view, he will
Be biased.
disenfranchise,
This is bias.
I don't know,
Biased
30
news.
to 60% of the public that you want to inform. And some of them may not even understand English.
What the fuck are you talking about?
This guy's a scholastic.
In
He
journalism,
knows. He's read
So what-
books.
who, where,
He's
and
talked
why,
to
right?
Senator Kane.
But the other, if you really go to a journalism class, they say there's two other things, right? One, who are you representing? Meaning who owns that newspaper or TV station, right? The other one is who is watching that TV show or reading that newspaper. So you have to know your
Audience.
public. If you don't, forget it. Why are you even doing it? It's a useless endeavor. All you're doing is masturbating. But if
You've got a mixed public. You don't have a homogeneous public. You don't have to know. I don't understand your point of you have to know your public to do good journalism. I don't understand that at all.
Well, if you don't understand that, then let's move on to the next subject.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Ow. Oh, so here
Well,
let's
you
have
could explain it to me.
I just
You
did.
can make an argument.
No, you're kind of. It's pretty much almost, A
This-
plus B
this is
equals
like
C.
Charlie
C
Brown
plus-
listening to
Oh, well,
teaching
you
the
can make
teacher
an
going
argument.
blah, blah, blah,
I'm
blah,
not
blah,
making an
blah,
argument.
blah,
I'm
right?
just stating that if you want to, I'll
And
take
this guy isn't
it
even as smart as
deeper,
Charlie
right?
Brown.
So there you want to inform the public to make a social change, right? Right? Isn't that the first thing we're going to start
You
with?
want you want your public to be aware of the facts and the things that are typically not spoken.
Okay. So you could say, you could put that, take anything, pick a subject that you could describe that.
Well, now tell me why you need to know your public
It's just
to do good journalism.
well because without you. So what is good journalism?
No, why do you need to know your public?
Okay, but
Okay, enough of that because you can get the drift, right? This guy, a general NICP. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He doesn't know that he is like so the horizon of understanding. He doesn't know that he is a facilitator of fascism by the way he is talking here. He thinks he's enlightened, he's talked to Tom Kane, right? I mean, he keeps saying stuff like that. I was at a cocktail party, and it's like, really? You're gonna go back? What year was that? Oh, that was 1974. Oh, so that's relevant today. Okay. So I gave some ties to some Arabs, and they wouldn't wear them. That's why uh, they're in the position they're in today, because they just don't know how to cut their hair. Okay, it sounds. So, I mean, those were the reasons why we had Jim Crow. And those were the reasons why we had anti-Semitism in the United States, and Jewish people couldn't join country clubs, right? It still is that way today. So, and this guy doesn't have a clue, you know. Oh, I was in Israel and into Gaza when 1964 and 1970. Okay. So really, yeah, I know it. Yeah, I've been observing it since then. I know everything about it. Really, I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, for almost 10 years. Right, my landlord was the head rabbi. He would come every month to pick up the cash for that, mostly because he wanted to hang out with me. Because first time he came after I like settled into my space, I had all my books all up on shelves. He started looking. I said, "Boy, this is the Torah." I said, "Yeah, I know, and it's in Greek." Yeah, I know. That's the way. If you want to know what it's talking about, that's it. Here's the New Testament in Greek and Sumerian. Can you read this stuff? Well, kind of. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you speak it? No. Can you speak Hebrew? Yeah, I understand it. Speaking it is a whole different. It really is. Speaking Hebrew is speaking any of those ancient languages, and Hebrew is one of those. Now Yiddish is a different thing. Yiddish is Hebrew put through the blender of all the different countries they've been in. The last 600 years, especially Germany. So so that guy says, "You need to be a rabbi." I said, "Rabbi." It's Rabbi Ratner. One of the, if you go to the Holocaust Museum in D.C., he's one of the people who raised the most money. He got me to go there because it was like, this is like in the 90s, I guess. And, he came and found me, and he said, I was at some university, you need to go there and help our people. They can't make it work. This is one of those discos that you made. We need you to zap it in. I said, okay. So I said, okay. So he actually took me from where I was and drove me. It was summertime, and I was doing my job, but there was nothing really going on. I didn't need to be there. I told my supervisor, "Hey, this is this guy," and he's doing. "Oh, wow, I know. I've heard of this guy." He's, "Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, go do that." So I did. Now, of course, Rabbi Ratner was not paying me any money. He's not even giving me like a Benjamin to buy a hot dog while I was there. And he said, "Well, we have places for you to sleep, and we'll get you sandwiches, and don't worry, just work on this." I said, "Okay." So I did, and there was no place for me. You can sleep over in the corner in the basement over there. Is there a bed? No, just sleep on the concrete. It's okay. Wake up at 6 and get to work. Make this thing work. And there were a lot of nice people, and I hung out with them. And yes, they let me sleep, but not for more than a night or two. So I ended up. It was summertime. I ended up sleeping in Rough, in the park, and I met a bunch of homeless people, and they showed me the best trees to sleep under and how to not be, attacked by the gangs or other homeless people or the police, right? And I had this great little ID that they gave me, and I went down to the police department and said, "Listen, I'm working for these guys. I want you to give me a police ID." So when I'm, being, and I have no place to stay, and the cop, the sergeant was like at the desk was, everyone else was laughing at me. "Why would you do that? Why did you help those people?" Blah, 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 blah. And the sergeant, who was Jewish, said, "Yeah, okay, no problem." So he did. So on my little lanyard, I had a photo of my face, and they put it in their database, and the cops and that sergeant told the other sergeant of that neck of the woods, "Hey, there's this guy who's working on the Holocaust Museum, and he's doing a good job, and he's one of us." And because I told him I had been part of New York, Housing Authority Police, and he's one of us. So they basically, so all those guys, so those cops would look out for me, right? And then when they saw, the homeless people saw that those guys were looking out for me, and same with the gangs, those guys left me alone, right? So I spent 3 weeks during the summertime, and I met this. So there were a long line, not a long line, but there were 4 different Jewish young girls who glammed onto me, and we hear you built a disco, and that's why you're here to get this. I said, yeah. And they were in their 20s, and I guess I was 91. So I was in the 90s. In the 80s, I was in my 30s, and in the 90s, I was in my 40s. And anyway, I would go clubbing. I would work because I had no place to really sleep. And so I would, basically go out with these girls. We club, we get buzzed. These girls really got buzzed, and they take me home and try to have their way with me. And I would do my best, and then but fall asleep. I mean, I was the archetypical. I get in that bed, and they would have their way with me, and I was asleep, right? And I'd have dreams about it. It was kind of fun. And don't believe a word I say. I'm just telling you a story here, right? Don't believe any of this. This video is just irrelevant. It really is. But I do this and play these videos and audios for you because it can give you a little window into who and what you are, right? And once you get that, you can move forward. Otherwise, you are stuck in purgatory. This is purgatory that we're seeing here, right? We are in the matrix. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hey, the show's been going on for now 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. I love it when that happens. And so, it'd be nice if there was some thumbs up there, kids. Come on, let's have some thumbs up, and tell your friends about the show. Let's see more people watching this stuff after. I know most of you folk, whoever will ever see this, see it, after it's no longer live. No one really, because this is a live chat. You guys should be chatting. You should be saying something over here, and you're not. Is a live chat even on? Let's see. Got it. Yes, maybe I might have had it off. So anyway, now it's on. Let's see if I can. Yep. See, there it is. See, you can chat away. Let's see you guys. So I've said a lot of interesting stuff. Showed you a lot of interesting stuff. I gave you plenty of a platform to say something. And let's see how much juice do I have? I got about 20 minutes left of this battery. So we got 20 minutes to have a conversation, right? So we talked about the media. We talked about what's going on in the Mideast, what's going on in the world in general, what's going on in your life. Where it doesn't matter whether, you should really go look at Carrot Head's website and what he wants to do. He, Sean Hannity was interviewing him at his town hall meeting, and he said, "Oh, we hear that you're going to go after your things using the government to get at people." And he goes, "Yep, that's what I'm going to do." Right? And then he goes, he goes, "I love this guy. He's asking me if I'm going to be a dictator." And he goes, "I'm going to be the dictator." And if you listen to exactly the words coming out of his mouth, he says, "Yes, I'm going to be a dictator for the first day." Meaning, and people think, "Oh, he's only going to be a dictator that one day." No, if you're a dictator for the first day on, I'm going to build a wall, and I am going to, and basically, Joe Biden is doing it. And I'm going to drill. Now, Biden, through his, Inflation Reduction Act, has basically opened up the gates of hell for drill, right? Opened up the gates of hell for basically putting camps, because he has put money into, there was money there that had to be spent. I can't do. I tried to stop it, can't do it. So it's got to go. And so where are they doing? Are they building up a picket fence along the border? Not no. They're getting eminent domain of large tracts of land where they could easily put somewhere between. I mean, bigger. They're getting tracts of land along the our southern border. That is going to be maybe 15 times more real estate than the Gaza Strip. That strip is only like 25 miles long by 6 miles wide. Right? This thing's going to be like 800 miles to 1,000 miles long. That's going to be 2 miles wide or more, 5. Because what they're going to do, there's parts of Mexico that was legitimized in NAFTA and then doubled down by Carrot Head in his version of the Make America Great Again NAFTA. And why Trump is so really interesting is that he actually says what he's going to do, and then he goes and does what he says. Biden says, "Oh, I'm going to stop this, do this," right? And he doesn't. He actually double downs on what Carrot Head said, right? And Obi basically was a black version of Carrot Head. He was the black Carrot Head, right? And before that, you had Georgie Porgy and Dickie, going, just breaking every norm in the book. Meaning all the stuff that Carrot Head did couldn't have happened without Georgie Porgy and Dickhead, right? Richard Cranium, as they say in Australia. I don't believe a word I say. Go check this stuff out. It's all on the internet. And you better check it out soon because internet is going down. It's already wobbling. It's already totally, and it's going to be toast. And it's going to come back in the image and likeness of good old Elon Musk. And Elon Musk and what's his name? Tucker. Why did Tucker get fired from Fox? Because he was their money maker. He made more money for Fox than anybody else, right? Because part of the script was for Tucker to get fired and to basically, and Big Daddy Fox, he's semi-retired and his oldest son has taken over. And his oldest son is just about making money, right? Giving the audience exactly what they want, is making money. And it's a platform for chaos, right? And so Tucker gets fired. He sets up his own platforms. He does his own thing. Now he's in total control. No one can fire him. And he is going to use it to vocalize Carrot Head, right? Now, Carrot Head doesn't need it, meaning he's going to be in court every day during the whole thing. So he won't be able to go. He'll be able to, late at night, go have these gigantic rallies here, there, and everywhere. And he will just be on his own script. He won't have to talk to the press at all. And during the day, where he might be pressed to say something, he will be in court. Won't be able to say anything. But he will have billions of dollars of free. I mean, on every news platform and public television, nightly news, all they're going to talk about is Trump. Trump, 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 Trump. No one will see what's really going on. Just Trump, 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 Trump. That's why it doesn't matter whether Joe salesman or Carrot has to be president. They're both the same guy. Now, Mr. I know everything. I'm a scholastic. This guy.
But you said, why do I need to know my public to do good journalism, right?
That's the question.
Okay. So,
maybe you could answer it, or you could just.
Well, I can. First of all, you have to realize meaning to answer that question, you have to say, what is good journalism to the public?
When you say the public for CNN, you're talking about, or ABC, or all of them. You don't have a homogeneous public.
Okay, so if you're doing just,
See, he doesn't even get to the point, right? He's always saying, "Oh, you never get to the point." And that's the scholastic motif. If you're not following their box, if you're not in their box, and you're not believing what their box says and how it's being, if you ask questions, that's why Socrates had to drink hemlock, because he was asking too many good questions. Now, me, I try to make people laugh and just think, and I'm not pressing the point. Now, Socrates, was too good at being Socratic. It was named after him. And he kept people going, oh my God, we got to kill this guy. Now, people don't say that about me. They just kind of go, I don't know, this guy's strange, but I kind of like him. He tells a good story. I don't know, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but he's not. Now, some people go, you're intimidating. That's what, this guy does, because he's intimidated, not so much by me, but by the fact that anyone would question the, sociopathic. There's a thing called Mickey Mac. First Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex. Mickey Mac was military-industrial, banking, media, college. All of those things that control the narrative. Every element. That's Mickey Mac. The control of every element, right? And the scholastics are right in the middle of it. That's they're the gatekeepers of Mickey Mac. Right? So we're living in, the Chinese had this thing, may you live in interesting times. Well, that's right where we are now. It's not any different than the interesting time when Jack Kennedy became president, and basically Jack saw the hidden hand throw Forrestal out the window of the hospital on the 16th floor. Right, he was right there. He saw him do it, and they turned to, kid, you next, or do you want to make your daddy proud? So he became a congressman, then senator, and then president, all under the guise of Mickey Mac, right? And the control of the scholastic motif, right? The collar, the priestly collar. They're the original. The Franciscans, the Jesuits, are the initial, scholastics, right? That collar that they wear, back in, and they still are, the Opus guys. They wear the collar that has little needles in it, and it's constantly, if they turn too much one way or the other, they get the needle in the neck. Anyway, 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. I love it when that happens. How much battery do we have? We're on the red line. Not quite on the red line yet. So, I just want, let's see, anybody say anything? Not yet. Come on, this is a chat.
Journalism for CNN or,
it's just idiotic.
Okay. Is if Roanoke's radio station did have, Democracy Now! And my little radio station here in Tennessee, in the middle of the Bible Belt, they have no worries about people sending them money. They don't even have, they don't even have, how the station in Roanoke has to take 2 weeks and beg for money, right? They don't have that in this radio station. People just send them enough money to run, and it's no big deal. They don't, they remind people, but they don't have drives. And that's because this is a good radio station, because they play to everyone who's here, not just the rich people eating the sandwiches. So they have Democracy Now!, right? They have Hispanic news. They have, you name it, every quadrant of they have, Inside Appalachia. They produce a third of all of their stuff, and they make money because it's so good. They sell it to other stations, right? And they started that, I forgot what it's called, but it's this kind of thing that's NPR, but it's individual. It's like people outside the NPR control that produce stuff and then send it and sell it to NPR. Anyway, so that's why this station does good journalism, and they have a lot of what's going on in the 3 counties. the political, the environmental, the social, everything. And they have a great, calendar of events. They tell everything that everyone's doing, and they do it instead of begging for money. They do that. So that's a great radio station. And there are a number of other ones sprinkled around America, but ones that are like at some time the NPR. I'm a midnight toker. I'm a smoker. That's a story, a rambling. Ramblers were guys who walked around into towns and told stories. So you're right, I'm rambling.
I would have said a story is a story. It has a beginning, a
middle, and an end, right? But not necessarily. Did you ever read James Joyce?
I think I read part of the Seven Pillars of Wisdom.
Okay. So he's not really well known for beginning, middle, and end.
I'm just talking about a story. I don't see it as a story.
Okay, so you're right. You're right. You're always right, Brent. I'm a rambler. I'm a gambler. I'm a midnight toker. I'm a smoker.
Tap dancer.
Tap dancer, yep. Well, I used to be a tap dancer. I can't do it. My legs are so shot I can't tap dance anymore. I used to. Carl Orff taught me tap dancing. I love to dance.
I'm not talking about physical.
I love dancing. Are you a dancer? Do you like to dance?
I wasn't talking about physical dancing.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about bouncing around.
Oh, okay. Well, you said tap dancing, so it popped up in my mind because I used to tap dance. I used to have those little metal things on my shoes and tap, tap, tap.
Well, you used the term first before I thought of it. I said, yeah, that's right.
Yep, tap dancer. Yep. So, yep. And a rambler. Yeah, I'm a rambler too. Yeah, that's quite literally. That's old English, But yeah.
Well, the whole thing tonight started off talking about you've never said you bought into the idea that improving journalism was the most efficient way to make a difference.
No. See, again, you don't listen to that word I say. I have always agreed with you on that one, 100%. But what we have is not good journalism, right? What we have is propaganda.
Well, that's a different subject, for God's sake.
But I've agreed with you. I've agreed with you. I've agreed with you every time.
No, you haven't, Al.
Every time. Nope, I've agreed with you. Okay, let's say from this point on, from now on into eternity, I will always agree with you that really having good journalism is the key to having a healthy communities, social politique.
You don't have any recollection of your telling me how basically it was a waste of time. There are other ways of doing it, having conversation with people, changing their lives.
No. I said that, yes, but I still contend that I agree with you that in the big picture of things, if we had real, good, honest media that informed our public, our world would be a lot better off, right? And I've always said that. Every time you bring it up, I say, you're right, 100%. But I say it's because of the capitalist structure of ownership of the media that'll never happen. And I said, because of that, the best thing you can do on an individual level, instead of wasting your time trying to do that, because all that is a real, what do they call it? When you're trying to impress or egocentric or nihilism, any of those.
What are you talking about now?
Well, when people do things not because they're going to have a positive outcome, but because it satisfies a need they have inside themselves to do it.
I think that's idiotic.
Okay. It's pretty much the basis of psychotherapy.
It's a belief that's the most efficient way of doing it.
And I agree, but because you're not listening, my contre to that is that you're right. A good media would be.
Well, how is it feeding ego then?
Because you keep, again, Freud said, when you say the same thing or do the same thing over and over and over, it is the textbook definition of being nuts.
Expecting a different.
Doing what over and over?
Saying, oh, we have to have a good media, blah, blah. When you know it'll never be. There's never, as long as we're a capitalist society, as we are, as long as the power structure is set up the way it is, the media will always represent that narrative, not ours, not what's best for the community. And it's to the point where when I said that to get that, you have to understand what the community is, what your audience is. You said, I don't understand. You don't need to know that. It's like, what? Without knowing that, you cannot have good journalism. If you don't know the narrative to tell, to inform the public, to do a positive change of their habits, then you're whistling dicks. You only jerk off on in the media, and that's what most of the media is. You look at a guy like Tucker Fredrickson. Now he does a great job. I really like what he does in informing the folk, but it's all about Tucker. He's very good. Okay. And again, he is reading the script. He is being put there. If I disappear, it's just because my battery is dying. Tucker Fredrickson is where he is because he represents the corporate structure in the motif of what Marx called the loyal opposition. You bring up things that the state wants you to bring up, so the public can say, "Yeah, things are changing. Yeah, see, it's okay." Yes.
So that's where we're at, and we've been at this place pretty much.
Which was about horrible crimes. A member of the House of Representatives willing to co-sponsor that resolution. Back in late October, the Save the Children organization had reported, I'm quoting here, the number of children reported killed in Gaza in just 3 weeks has surpassed the annual number of children killed across the world's conflict zones since 2019. On November 10th, the Director General of the World Health Organization told the United Nations Security Council, quote, on average, a child is killed every 10 minutes in Gaza. Courtesy, I would add, of U.S. taxpayers. And if you do the math, that's about 1,000 kids a week. We might think about the 96% of the U.S. House of Representatives in 2023 who've declined to co-sponsor a ceasefire resolution. What if their children were being bombed? What if their children had to be pulled out of the rubble? It's not a stretch to say that
this is going to be happening in America, kids.
Are accomplices to mass murder. It's not a stretch.
We're going to have martial law
the United States
in 2024.
Is accomplice to mass murder.
Definitely by 25, it will be
in U.S. mass music.
Handmaid's Tale.
And the members of Congress, the few willing to even come close to talk about genocide going on, they're withstanding ferocious attacks. No good deed of truth to go unpunished. A few weeks into the bombing of Gaza, there were reliable reports that 180 doctors and nurses had been killed in Gaza. We've had reports of
killing them on purpose. They were trying to destroy the medical, and it's not destroyed.
Hospitals, seeing their own families brought in dead on gurneys. That's part of U.S. foreign policy.
You got it.
The poet
We're not
William
trying to
Stafford
stop it.
wrote, I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. Sometimes to recognize the fact is just too painful, too difficult, too inconvenient. During the first 5 weeks of the bombing,
Any of you out there who are watching this, having this conversation with your friends and family,
were killed, including nearly 5,000 children. This in response to the atrocities that Hamas committed on October 7th in Israel, where the latest estimate of the death toll is 1,200, including at least 846
And we're not
civilians.
getting any forensic information about
Also,
really what happened
About
there.
200 hostages were
You know?
taken. We so desperately need in our media, in our politics, in our discourse, a single standard of human rights, of international law, no matter who is committing the atrocities, no matter who is engaging in terrorism. It's really fascinating in an Orwellian analytical sense to see how routinely Hamas is described as a terrorist organization. And it is, and how I can't find a single instance where the US mass media, any one of the outlets, has described the Israeli government as a terrorist organization. But if we have the same standard, that would be appropriate. And then what do we say about the biggest accomplice to that terrorist organization called the Israeli government? That would be the United States government. What does it mean when you're an active accomplice? You know, they're busting gun dealers for selling assault rifles to somebody who shoots up a supermarket or a school. Those people are prosecuted. But 400 and more members of the House of Representatives, the guy behind the office desk in the Oval Office, dare not even say that they have an accomplished role. That's a bridge too far. That's not allowed. We have to mind our P's and Q's, because terrorism is defined as is convenient. And so when the US government, and it's very good at this, kills from the air, we're above it all. That's not terrorism. It's a 180 we're made to understand from packing a bunch of explosives in the trunk of a car and driving it into a target.
That's terrorism.
Something that I've wrestled with a lot and wrote about in War Made Invisible is that question of intentionality. That's part of the conceit in the United States, in Israel, and elsewhere. Oh, we don't target civilians, unlike those bad terrorists. We don't target civilians. And yet, throughout the so-called war on terror and now what's going on in Gaza, the effect is absolutely the same, because the civilian deaths are absolutely predictable. And the people giving the orders at the top know that. But it's a sort of a
Jojo, Blinken, all those guys.
We don't target them. No,
Pinocchio.
we kill them. We know we will kill all those civilians, so many, but that's okay. We've given ourselves an out. And the mass media, of course, go along with that. That's fine. There's a lot of talk these days, of course, about we shouldn't make students uncomfortable. I'm not just talking Florida here. I'm talking every state in this country. We have people saying, sometimes in very high places, positions of authority, mass media, civic groups saying,
just what, and he's saying this
not make
before
students uncomfortable.
they went
They
after
shouldn't
the
have to hear things
presidents of
that make them
Harvard and
And
Penn
then, of course,
State and
we could
MIT.
think, I wonder how comfortable students have been in Gaza for the last few weeks, when our own country is directly involved, directly complicit, but we shouldn't make anybody uncomfortable by sharing information about it, showing some of the results. The problem is not people being too uncomfortable. The problem is people being too comfortable and encouraged to be too comfortable. Whether it's the U.S. warfare state, whether it's corporate power, whether it's the grievous inequities of wealth and terrible poverty
in the United
systemic
States and the
racism.
rest of the world.
Comfort, that we're supposed
Look
to be
what
comfortable.
happened at
We're
the
supposed to adjust
climate
ourselves to that.
thing that just closed.
The whole mentality that is officially promulgated and encouraged is that when the United States does things that aren't quite right, that's an anomaly. It's not systemic. Oh, it's just an anomaly.
Just,
the mistakes are made. But actually, the mistakes are systemic, because they're not mistakes.
They're not mistakes.
The atrocities become routine. They become built in because they are organized that way.
They're organized.
Aldous Huxley said, the propagandist's purpose is to make one set of people forget that certain other sets of people are human. That's the unspoken messaging that is so much a part of these two tiers of grief. On the planet, the United States has 4% of the world's population. And yet, with the window on the world tinted red, white, and blue, we're encouraged to believe that, hey, it's about us. It's really about us.
The whole world is. It's our little
The
playground.
anomalies
We can do whatever the heck we
believe.
want.
That's not who we are. Maybe it is, but part of who we are is to tell each other that that's not who we are. Soon after the U.S. military slaughtered huge numbers of people in the Philippines,
This is the
the American author William
Spanish-American War. We
Howells
killed a
wrote
million
a short story
Filipinos.
called Adifa. And in that short story, one of the characters says, what a thing it is to have a country that can't be wrong, but if it is right anyway. Again, think of a more contemporary comment than one that was written more than a century ago. And coming along with that is the absence of remorse. It's really stunning.
We have no remorse in America.
I'm in my early
None.
70s, so I've been alive during the going on from the Vietnam War.
This guy
Keep
and I
looking for
are same
remorse.
age.
3 million Vietnamese people, the slaughter in Laos
Heading
and
towards
Cambodia, illegal, immoral. People being killed in the plain of jars in Laos who
Millions.
had never even heard of the United States.
Millions.
Where was the remorse? And where is the remorse?
Right.
You're listening to Norman Solomon on the madness of militarism. This is Independent Alternative Radio. To get copies of this program and his book, War Made Invisible, just call us 1-800-444-1977.
All these guys.
Again, that's 1-800-444-1977.
Give them some money.
Go online, our website,
Buy these books.
alternativeradio.org.
Don't give me any money.
That's
Give that guy some money.
alternativeradio.org.
Well, there's not enough time to do justice to the war since then. Grenada, Panama in the 1980s, 1991, according to the Pentagon, 100,000 Iraqis killed in 6 weeks. That was taken as a great triumph. And first President Bush saying, quote, by God, we've kicked the Vietnam syndrome once and for all. 1999, 78 straight days of bombing led by the United States, Yugoslavia, and Kosovo. Not a single American died. Great triumph. Cluster bombs being used. By the way, it's not a secret. You can go to the Congressional Research Service and find that during the first 3 weeks of the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, the United States used between 1.8 and 2 million cluster munitions bomblets to shred the bodies of everybody. And one of the most heinous, terrible weapons in modern warfare.
We invented it.
We hardly ever heard about it. And in
Never.
fact, you may remember, to fast forward, that when the Russians invaded Ukraine and it was reported that they were using cluster munitions, they were justifiably denounced by U.S. media, and the White House publicly suggested that might well be a war crime.
War crime.
But then the Ukrainian forces were running out of weapons and ammunition, and the U.S. was running out of resupply ammunition, but the U.S. had plenty of cluster munitions on the shelf. And so President Biden, with bipartisan support in Congress, gave the green light, and there went on from there huge shipping of cluster munitions to Ukraine. It wasn't so bad after all. So how Orwellian can you get? 2022, a war crime. 2023, no problem. This is one of countless examples of the tears of grief, the corruption, the corrosion, if you will, the spiritual desecration of U.S. government, of mass media, and of our own lives. To the extent we accept it.
Do you hear our
In the fall of
scholastic
2002 in
friend
Baghdad, I met a few
talk
of the
as
surviving
succinctly as this
Iraqi
guy?
children.
Me, I try to respond in my
UNICEF's
tap dancing
director
way.
in
This
Baghdad
guy's
took me
right
around
on.
to some schools. The ones that had been refurbished were really nice.
This
There
is
was no
what's after
smell
we
of
blow 'em up.
sewage. But other schools, I was taken to another one, had not yet been refurbished. They were working on it. The UNICEF office there was trying to provide schools for kids that didn't have
Okay,
sewage smell.
I gotta go. It's in the red line.
It was really impressive. And so we went back.
So that's alternative radio, and go on their website, alternativeradio.org. And he's been, David has been doing this, since the 60s. He's got thousands of lectures like that you can just hit it on the internet, right? Give him a few pennies, bingo, you can listen to it. Just lecture after lecture after lecture of amazing scholarly people, on every level. The only thing, he don't care whether you're left or right or whatever you are, that doesn't matter. It's your level of integrity. That's what's important. Because there are people of integrity in every level of politics. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, liberal or labor or conservative, or even the NICP have people who, Tucker Fredrickson is definitely NICP, but he has a level of, because he uses it at propaganda. As Goebbels said, to have good propaganda, have 60% truth and then 40% propaganda. The crap that's a joke is just blah, 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 and, stuff, just look at the what's coming out of Bibi's mouth. It's not good propaganda, because when they were going on, when it was obviously the Holocaust that was going on in the Strip, and they, that's our word. We're the only ones who can use Holocaust. And look what these guys did. And they were screwing babies in the brain. They chopped their heads off and raped everybody. And no, it's terrible. And the guys who say, "Oh, really? So let's see some pictures. Let's see some, where are the bodies? Where's the forensic reports? It's now been 2.5 months, 1,200 bodies. You got to have a few reports on it. No, we don't have any. How about the doctors who identify? We don't know who they are. How about talking to anybody who was there? Oh, and they would give some little girl in 7th grade. Well, my mommy's best friend's cousin's daughter, who's married to someone who knew someone at a supermarket who heard someone talk about what happened when they came. Oh, it was terrible. That was the level of forensic data they had on it. And then once it was so obviously just piece of crap, they stopped talking about it. Now, if you go, my sources in Israel tell me that it's beyond Orwellian, because there's nothing but 24/7 mind control, war, and they're going to get us. We have to do anything to protect ourselves. And there's, Hamas is not a threat. The real threat is the Israeli government to the Israeli people. They're the ones putting them in harm's way. Anyway, again, we're in the red zone here. I got to go. This thing doesn't like it when I let it die on the battery. So there's an hour and 48 minutes and 48 seconds. And let's say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Hallowed be thy name. Hallowed be thy name. Love's co-creation. Hallowed be thy name. Love's co-creation. Hallowed be thy name. And your little mantra, conscious intent I am. Conscious intent I am. Hallowed be thy name. Om. Right? Everything you do, conscious intent. That boy I put was a real obvious that, he's not. Who is this? David something. Just emoji. You got to do, this is a chat. You got to make a comment, not just an emoji. I don't understand emoji. I don't understand your language. Anyway, so go back and watch this thing. There's a lot on this one. So enjoy. Hope it opens your mind a bit.